daughter's gone, Vi. All that's left is Jinx. I gave up on it. Gave up on you.
Oh, look who it is. The boy savior.
I had this dream.
Les pots d'étain s'entrechoquent, le vin, la bière coule à flot, hommes et bêtes suffoquent.
Where things went another way.
Rythme des notes impériales. Moi, je te prête.
Jinx X Ekko is called Time Bomb, and after that blast of feels, I think it's more than earned that name.
Fucking
Ekko Jinx, we thought it never happened, but it did.
Until you started talking to the guns.
What's the matter, little man? You really jealous of a gun?
Arcane is a series I never expected to blow me away the way it did. The way the story handles its themes, subject matter, music, the pacing in season 1, and how it handles its characters and their dynamics with one another, from Vi and Caitlyn's relationship as polar opposites, to the bond between Jace and Victor that forms from their desire to help the people of Zaan and Piltover, and how Silco and Vanda's relationships with their adopted daughters shapes the people they become, is some of the best writing I've ever had the pleasure of seeing in fiction. But between Vi and Kate, Jace and Victor, Maddie and Bullet, one relationship and one dynamic in Arcane managed to captivate me and keep me invested, and all it needed was a single episode. Ekko x Jinx, or better known by their ship name,
Timebomb.
Timebomb, has become arguably one of the internet's favorite fictional couples, and I don't say that lightly. There are dozens of videos analyzing this relationship, some of the most gorgeous fan art I've ever seen in my life, fan fictions being pumped out on the daily revolving around these two, polls that they keep winning with landslide victories, people literally making their own music videos for the scenes that were allegedly cut in the finale that revolved around Ekko and Jinx, fan comics, as well as full-on animatics on TikTok. Someone literally made a 5-part series where Ekko and Jinx reunite, and the subreddit going from 780 members before Act 3 of Season 2 dropped to 11,000 members at the time of scripting this video and 16k at the time of recording this video. But you're probably wondering why, right? Why has this ship become everyone's newest hyperfixation, or why was it people's hyperfixation? Because this video is 3 fucking months late! Why are fans acting like rabid dogs at the thought of seeing these two on screen together again?
Netflix, I will find you. Please drop it, for the love of God. Please just drop it on Christmas. I can't do this no more, bro.
I mean, if you clicked on this video after already watching the dozens of time bomb analysis videos on YouTube, then you already know why. Episode 7 of Season 2 was a fantastic episode that highlighted the relationship of Ekko and Jinx, and for all intent and purposes, this relationship shouldn't have worked.
Genius and madness.
Between both seasons, Ekko and Jinx have less screen time together than the main couple, Caitlyn and Vi. But for some reason, several actually, they have managed to become the most compelling couple in the entire series. And I've been ruminating since the finale on why Time Bomb were able to capture the hearts of so many people with the limited screen time they had and the amount of cut content we will probably never get to see. I'm gonna talk about that. And I think I finally have an answer to this question, or at least some form of an answer. Now, before I start analyzing Jinx and Ekko's relationship for the next Jesus Christ! Minutes. I do want to say that I have never played League of Legends and I have no real desire to ever play the game. A lot of what I know about the show starts and stops at the show itself. I know nothing about the lore and the world of Runeterra as a whole, but to educate myself on the history of Ekko and Jinx's relationship, I decided to do a little digging and I discovered this very long thread that tracked down every single breadcrumb in regards to the relationship that Ekko and Jinx share. There are a lot of hints and clues on this relationship that would probably warrant its own video, but I don't want to go over everything because the video would be like an additional 40 minutes longer and that would probably kill me. The main thing that everyone has pointed to as a direct implication to Ekko and Jinx possibly being something more is Ekko's line from League all the way back in 2015 when he was released, where he says this:
I had a crush until you started talking to the gun.
From what I know, this is the major thing that really set people off and got them to start shipping these two. In the first season of the show, Ekko and Powder don't really have any screen time together. The majority of their interactions come from the Enemy music video and Powder mentioning Ekko under his nickname Little Man when Vendor presses the kids on who gave them information for their failed heist.
Where did you even get this tip?
We just heard it at Benzo's shop.
From?
Little man.
Despite the lack of any on-screen interaction in the first 3 episodes, the Enemy music video gives us an insight on Ekko and Powder's relationship when they were kids, and their relationship was kinda deeper than a lot of people give it credit for. The scenes that Ekko and Powder share in the Enemy music video are filled with joy and happiness. Contrast that to the first scene of Powder and Vi on screen together. It's sad and melancholic. Vi and Powder are hugging and Powder starts crying, while the first scene we see of Ekko and Powder together on screen by themselves is the both of them I assume to be jumping on a bed together and they're just having fun, and the scene that follows that immediately after is a scene of a firelight coming out of a sleeping Powder's mouth. Now, I'm sure there's some type of symbolic meaning as to why a firelight comes out of her mouth. Maybe an indication that Ekko is the only person that can see her both for who she is inside and out. If there is someone who thinks they know what this scene represents, please tell me in the comments. The scenes we get after are pretty much exactly what I mentioned when comparing and contrasting Vi and Powder's scenes with Powder and Ekko's scenes together. There's always this tinge of melancholy when Vi and Powder are on screen together, while Ekko and Powder just seem to enjoy each other's company without any real restrictions or anything holding themselves back from just expressing themselves without fear of judgment, which is something Powder struggles with when she's around Vi and the older kids. Because Vi is the cooler older sibling, Powder tries to imitate that. She wants to be someone the other kids can see as someone dependable and reliable, but because she's limited by the fact that she's not as big or as strong as Vi and Milo's constant belittling of her abilities, she's stuck feeling helpless and feeling like a burden that isn't able to help anyone. You see this short scene of her watching someone get beat up in an alleyway? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Powder wants to help, but because of her own insecurities, she just gives up and walks away. The only person she doesn't feel that way around is Ekko, even after Vi slaps her in the Enemy music video. When Ekko pops back on screen before she fully transforms into Jinx, you can see the both of them having fun while Jid is rapping. Also, I want you to keep in mind the name of this song, Enemy, and the context around the song being that Powder, who turns into Jinx, sees everyone around her as her enemy, because this will come up again later. I'm not just doing the YouTube video essayist. Also, I'm probably gonna mention this in my Arcane video on the soundtracks of Arcane, but isn't it funny that Imagine Dragons and JID are technically canon in the world of Arcane? Like, the rapper Jid is technically a character in the world of Arcane. And so I imagine. So if we take the Enemy music video into account and count it as canon, then we are clearly shown that Ekko was probably the one person that Powder could truly be herself around. After that, there are a few interactions between them after Powder transforms into Jinx, with no dialogue ever really being exchanged between the both of them. And while it has been confirmed that Jinx is aware that Ekko is underneath the mask and is the leader of the Firelights, it's never said in the show, although some people people do speculate that Jinx in episode 4 says hi to Ekko here.
Hi.
Which makes me really sad because she's aware that her former best friend is behind the mask, but is probably willing to kill him if it means that Silco will praise her efforts. The next time we see Ekko and Jinx on screen together is when Ekko kidnaps Vi and Caitlyn at the end of episode 6 after Vi reunites with Jinx, and episode 7, titled The Boy Savior, is where we really start to delve into Ekko as a character. Ekko doesn't really get a lot of screen time in the episode titled after him, surprisingly enough. No, that's for episode 7 of season 2. But from what we see of Ekko, the death of Benzo, Milo, Clagger, Vander, and Vi, who he believed to be dead, had a severe impact on his growth. Add on to the fact that Silco was flooding the Undercity with the Shimmer drug, and the home he once grew up in, although terrible, was changing in a way that didn't sit right with him. So much so that Ekko ended up creating the Firelights, a rebellious faction that challenged Silco's ever-growing drug empire, and also creating a safe haven for former Shimmer addicts and people who were looking to escape the harsh new Undercity that Silco was creating. Having to grow up in that type of environment wasn't exactly the healthiest for a 10-year-old boy, and much like Jinx, Ekko had to change in order to survive. He had to become a leader, someone who was able to make the tough decisions while closing off his heart to other people's feelings if it didn't benefit him or the community he was now responsible of building and protecting. And one of the people who posed the most danger to his community was Jinx. The fight on the bridge between Ekko and Jinx is interesting for several reasons because of the added context of season 2 episode 7. Before delving into the fight itself, the fight actually gets foreshadowed much earlier in the episode while Jinx is patching herself up when she mimics herself shooting down a firelight bug in her hideout. I also want to mention that Amanda Overton, one of the writers, has mentioned that there was supposed to be a scene of Ekko going after Powder to save her from Silco when they were kids at the beginning of the episode, and reminiscent of how Vi slapped her in episode 3, she slapped Ekko and told him that she went by the name Jinx and that Powder was dead. If this deleted scene is actually real, that would explain why Ekko sounds so hurt when Vi says that she wants to save Powder, and he says this.
Your sister works for him not because she has to, but because she wants to. I'm sorry, but that's who she is now.
This tone is very indicative of someone who has been hurt by her. And I don't mean the hurt from Jinx's bullets flying towards his face. I mean an emotional hurt from someone he cared about pushing him away and doing it in a way that both hurt him emotionally on top of physically. There is a lot of bad blood between these two. Add on to the fact that in season 2, we see that Ekko and Powder are in a relationship in an alternate universe, and it really just shows how much more tragic the relationship between Jinx and Ekko is in the main universe. But I'm getting a bit off topic. Going back and watching the fight, I never noticed how flirtatious Jinx and Ekko act at the beginning of the fight. Yes, Ekko uses this game that he and Powder played as kids to trick Jinx into using the same moves that worked when they played the game as children. But there is a deeper subtext underneath this that I feel a lot of people either didn't see or they wrote off until Amanda Overton said herself that they were romantic implications between the two of them. First, the fight kicks off with Jinx mocking Ekko with the nickname I assume only she's given him, a reference to the way that Ekko tried and failed to save her, and depending on how you look at it, Ekko initiating the game is also a way of mocking Jinx by challenging her to a game that she's already beaten him in several times over. Now, I can't really speak specifically on why Jinx and Ekko are giving each other such flirtatious looks, and just saying that maybe they like each other as something more sounds a bit too simple. Jinx and Ekko's relationship, much like all the relationships in this show, is more complex than a standard writing trope. It's more than just them being friends to enemies to lovers, and as the fight goes on and we see them as kids interlaced with Ekko trying to predict Jinx's bullets and where he should dodge in order to not get hit, we see a glimpse into the deeper layers of their relationship. Remember when I spoke about how Powder in the Enemy music video was more of her herself when Ekko was around? Of course you did. That was 5 minutes ago. And you wouldn't forget that, would you? This game that Ekko and Jinx play together is another way in which Jinx lowers her guard and is actually herself around the one person who can bring out that side of her. And would you look at that, Vi is nowhere near the vicinity, so Jinx doesn't have to put up a mask of any kind. The way the scene is also shot highlights something pretty interesting to me as well. Ekko typically associates his encounters with Jinx to dances, and when Ekko and Jinx dance together in the next season, the world around them disappears, almost making it seem like they are the only two people in the world that exists. And if you pay attention, this happens during the fight on the bridge as well. When Ekko starts the game, or more accurately put, when the game kicks off, the world around them fades away, leaving the both of them there. And here's an interesting fact. In episode 7 of the next season, Ekko and Powder have their dance, and Powder asks him this.
Where'd you learn those moves?
And he responds with this.
Just following your lead.
I don't know the specific word to use here, but the word synchronized feels appropriate. Synchronization has two meanings, funnily enough, that relate to both of these episodes in each season. The first definition is the operation or activity of two or more things at the same time. Quote, lack of synchronization between the dancers made it look clumsy. The second definition is the adjustment of a clock or watch to show the same time as another. Time, clock, Ekko, dance. I'm not doing this on purpose. Also, I wanted to show you guys my Jinx mug. Like you see this shit? You see this shit, man? You see this shit? You see this shit? There's nothing in here, but I just wanted to show like my mug. Now, if you guys want a more in-depth analysis on Ekko's relationship to time and how that affects his relationship with Jinx, Shni has a video going in depth on it, so check that out when you are done with this video. Going back to the fight on the bridge, Ekko understands who Jinx is because of his history with Powder. He can read her movements in a way that other people can't, and because of that, he's always in sync with every step she takes. It really is
Always a dance with you.
the term pantomime comes to mind when thinking about the fight on the bridge because it says so many things in such a short period of time without any words being exchanged between Jinx and Ekko. And for those of you who don't know what pantomime is, it's the act of telling a story without dialogue being spoken between the characters. The main thing that leads us through the story is through the characters' facial expressions, gestures, and how they move their bodies. For example, the way Jinx bites her lip when she starts firing her gun at Ekko, the subtle look from Ekko's watch to him when he pulls it out. His watch. When he pulls out his watch, you sick freak. The way Ekko dodges her bullets, taking care to be precise so he doesn't get grazed by them because he knows how Jinx moves, and Jinx's overconfidence making her position her body in a way that she knows will make it harder to hit Ekko, but still doing it because she's beaten him so many times before. And here's another thing that I noticed because I've been rewatching the show a lot recently. She isn't just repositioning herself because she's overconfident. It's because she's deliberately making it harder for herself to actually hit Ekko. She doesn't want to kill him even when she gets a clear opening to put a hole through his chest. But the real pantomime of this scene is when this happens. This scene is uncomfortable to watch. The moment the music cuts out, this fight gets shown for what it truly is. The veil that was drawn over our eyes is forcefully ripped off to show us two former childhood friends who once cared about each other deeply, now trying to kill each other. Ekko's movements, his aggression sings in a violent beatdown of his former best friend. It's agonizing and brutal to watch. Jinx's struggle as she tries to free herself, the panic and rage from losing a game her and Ekko used to play as children for the first time and that she never lost, quickly turns into fear. She's scared and Ekko notices she's scared, and we are shown one of the saddest moments of the entire show. Ekko's beatdown of her stops and the two of them just stare at each other. Ekko realizing that the friend he once thought to be dead never truly died and that Powder is still in there. and the look in Jinx's eye as she laments the death of the people they used to be to one another. It's tragic, and Jinx, believing that she could set the both of them free from the pain they've both experienced, tries to kill them. I've seen a lot of theories and speculation as to why Jinx does this. One of the most prominent theories I see in relation to Ekko is that he is the one person who brought her actual happiness in her life. A lot of Jinx's hallucinations and the specters that haunt her visions are from people she has a negative past with or people she's caused the deaths of. Selko, Isha, Milo, Clagger, and Vi are the most prominent ones, but Ekko never really popped up. And you would think that Jinx would have every reason to think he was one of the worst parts of her past because his tips indirectly caused everything in the story to go wrong and lead them down the path they both are currently on. But no, Ekko is the one person who she can look at, who reminds her of a happier time in her life where things were much simpler and she could be herself. And to me, this act of blowing the both of them up isn't Jinx pulling the pin, it's Powder. Powder wants to take Ekko with her to what she believes is a much happier place in the afterlife. That's why she does it without hesitation. And while you can attribute her behavior to her suicidal ideation and her tendency to blow herself up when she feels like she's been backed into a corner and has run out of options, this moment in particular strikes me as one of full clarity and a desire from Powder to release her and Ekko from the torment the lives they've lived has caused them, while giving the both of them the chance to be together even in death. Yes, believe it or not, one of the saddest moments of the show, where a girl tries to blow herself and her former best friend up, is one of the most romantic moments in the series. Very Romeo and Juliet coded, or Osamu Dazai coded. And PSA, for all you lunatics, do not try to blow yourself and your partner up. That is not cool, and you will probably go to prison for trying to do that to your partner. Don't ask me how I know. After this moment, Ekko and Jinx don't really interact until the next season. Jinx gets experimented on and becomes damn near superhuman with shimmer running through her veins that makes her both insanely strong and incredibly fast. She also kills the father that adopted her, as well as blow up the council as one last act of love for Selko and Zahn's first act of retribution and rebellion against the people who turned her home into what it is. She becomes the most wanted criminal in Zahn and Piltover, as well as a revolutionary figure, and ends up adopting Isha, a mute little girl who she ends up growing attached to, and has this big cool super epic fight with Vi where Wood King is singing out his heart in the background. Also, this is one of my favorite songs from season 2, so you will hear me sing it very cringely. Ekko meets Heimerdinger after surviving Jinx's explosion, finds out his tree has magical cancer, and in order to learn more about what's causing the magic cancer, he sneaks into the university where he, Jace, and Heimerdinger end up figuring out that the aforementioned tree cancer is a result of Jace and Victor pissing off the Arcane. The Arcane is basically like the magic of the world of Runeterra. Again, I don't know anything about the lore, so feel free to explain what the Arcane is if I'm wrong. Ekko, Jace, and Heimerdinger get transported to alternate realities where the story of the main universe diverted from the original in major ways. In the timeline Jace is transported to, he sees what I can only describe as a literal hell on earth. A barren wasteland born from his and Victor's pursuit of trying to create the perfect world through their hex tech research and tampering of the Arcane. He even meets Victor, and you are probably wondering why I'm mentioning this considering that the video is about Ekko and Jinx's relationship, but I swear what Victor says to Jace here and what Jace later says to Victor in the finale is a crucial aspect of why Ekko and Jinx's relationship works so well. Speaking of Ekko,
You're beyond help.
oh, this is so evil. I know it's been talked about to hell and back, but this shot of Jinx being what Ekko sees reflected to him when he looks at AU Powder is such a knife to the heart dick move on the story's part. So Ekko gets teleported to an alternate universe that is the literal opposite of everything Jace is going through in his timeline. Jace is currently living through Dark Souls 1 and Ekko is playing The Sims 3 with all the cheat codes unlocked. It is literal paradise on Earth. Ekko's own Garden of Eden, if I could put it any other way. The way in which this timeline diverts from the main universe is Vi dying on the heist that we see at the start of the show. Vi's death is one of the major catalysts that shifts the story drastically in this timeline. I say one and not the major catalyst because a lot of factors result in a change for the better in this universe. Silco and Vander forgiving one another, Silco never meeting Singed and creating Shimmer, Victor and Jace not creating Hextech, Mel never getting Jace on the council, Milo not bullying Powder, etc. The reason this alternate timeline turns out the way it does is reliant on more than just Vi's death, and I can understand why a lot of people think that Vi's death is the most important aspect of this timeline being much better. With Vi dead, Jinx was never created because Milo eventually stopped calling her a Jinx that causes problems, and he and Clagger had to start being good brothers to her and actually be there for her. It's not confirmed, this is all just my own speculation on what I believe to be the likeliest scenario as to why Powder's upbringing after Vi's death resulted in her being more emotionally mature and stable in this timeline. It's why it's also so jarring for Ekko as well when he sees this version of her. For 7 years, he and Jinx were on opposite sides of Zaun's civil conflict. He's probably fought her dozens of times while trying to destroy Silco's Shimmer operations, and she's been responsible for killing a lot of his friends in the Firelights. So to see this more harmless version of her that isn't trying to kill him is more terrifying than seeing one that actively points a gun at him with the intent to murder.
You know those ugly twins. Genius and madness.
Now, does that mean Ekko's actions are justifiable in the way he treats AU Powder in the earlier parts of the episode?
Was it you?
No. Hell no. My brother in Christ, she's not responsible for what happened. But it's understandable why he acts the way he does. Not only has the shock of being transported from his nightmare of hope. I'm sorry. I just can't go. I just can't get over this line. Was it you? Oh, this is so funny. This is so funny. I'm sorry. Not only has the shock of having been transported from his nightmare of a world to this paradise on Earth not really worn off, but the person he once believed to be dead is right there in front of him, acting just like he knew her when they were still kids growing up in the Undercity, but happier and more full of life compared to the pale Deathbringer he knows by the name of Jinx. The reality of his situation doesn't really settle on him until he takes a stroll through this new Zaun that has united with Piltover, and when he crosses the Bridge of Progress, he's reminded of the night he fought Jinx on that very same bridge in his universe. We also get to see a glimpse of what happened that night after the bomb exploded. The only thing shaking him out of his thoughts is kids bumping into him while playing on the bridge. Now I'm going to start gushing about Season 2, Episode 7, so prepare yourself. One of the things I love about episode 7 of season 2 is how well paced this episode is compared to the other episodes in season 2. The pacing goes back to what made the first season so great. It's an episode that really allows you to sit with these characters in an intimate way and really feel their chemistry with one another. I love how intimate all the scenes between Powder and Ekko feel after the whole "was it you" scene. Ekko apologizes by painting Vi's mural for Powder and asks for her help in building the Z Drive, and the montage of them building the Z Drive is very cute because we get subtle hints to the fact that Powder is aware that something is going on, as well as seeing how her and Ekko work so well together. Also, this repeated shot that makes it seem like Ekko and Powder are rewiring each other's brains because they are helping each other figure out a solution to make the Z Drive work is just
perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Now I want to talk about the dance scene more than you know. I brought it up when talking about Jinx and Ekko's fight on the bridge, so now is probably the time to actually talk about it. But I want to highlight a few things before I talk about the dance itself and why I believe it's one of the most important moments in the progression of Jinx and Ekko's relationship. I say Jinx and not Powder because what happens in this episode ends up changing Ekko's perception of who he believes Jinx to be and how he sees her. Powder in this universe is a very different version than the main universe Powder. Not in a lot of ways, but enough that there is a noticeable similarity between the both of them and a noticeable difference between the both of them. I do not know anything about BPD, so again, I ask if anyone who is knowledgeable about it to correct me in the comments or add to the discussion if you are knowledgeable about the subject. But from what I've seen online, people have said that Powder has BPD or some form of it, and Powder in this universe is someone who has a level of emotional maturity and mental stability to control her outbursts without the weight of a guilty conscience. The Powder in this timeline has been able to live a much more normal life compared to our main universe Powder, who, for lack of a better word, is probably going through it while Ekko and Heimerdinger are having the time of their lives. The really interesting thing about this version of Powder is how we can see Jinx in her. The scene with Ekko in Powder's workshop is sort of the first indication that Jinx is in there, and later the scene at the tree is a confirmation of that when Ekko says this to her.
Your ideas change the world. I can't shake the feeling that that's who you're supposed to be.
And her rebuttal to Ekko in this scene is this.
I don't want to lose what makes me chasing some wild dream.
Powder in this world has limited her own potential by holding herself back for the sake of her loved ones. Since Vi's death, she's been afraid to let her potential fully flourish, and instead of working on her own inventions, she's chosen to be a passenger rather than being the person whose hands are on the steering wheel. She says she's happy with how her life has turned out, and while we can see that, there is still a lingering sense of desiring more. Ekko has been lucky, or I guess you can say he's had the unlucky privilege of seeing what Powder at her fullest potential can accomplish and achieve. Jinx in all her chaotic glory is a manifestation of Powder at her fullest potential. She's unrestricted, free, wild, and doesn't let anything stop her or her creative vision. And because she allows herself to be unrestrained by conventional thinking, she's able to fully thrive as one of the smartest people in Zon and Piltover in the main universe. When Ekko sees that this version of Powder doesn't allow herself to truly express herself and coast off the ideas of the people around her, he can't help but compare her to his Powder, his Jinx.
You were different in my dream too.
Oh yeah, Buster? Is that what this is about? You want me to change?
He's not wrong in his belief that Powder's ideas bring actual change to the world. Her blowing up the council was something that brought change in Zon. It was an act of terrorism. Oh my god. Am I defending terrorism? It was an act of terrorism that was also an act of rebellion against the people who turned her home into what it is because they refused to acknowledge Zon as equal to Piltover. She becomes an actual revolutionary figure who starts something in Zon, and while she doesn't have Silco's level of power or control over the other Chem Barons, she lights a fire underneath the people of Zon to the point that a faction going by the name the Jinxes forms. You would think that in a world where Ekko has his perfect version of Powder that he would be happy, but he isn't. He wants Powder to embrace the side of herself that explores her ideas, to explore her Jinx persona more, rather than being satisfied with helping others, because she isn't the type of person who
helps other people with their projects.
And I think it's really interesting that when Powder asks Ekko if he wants her to change, to be like the different person he saw in his dream, he says,
No. No.
This is a very beautiful moment for Ekko's character because it shows us that despite the bad blood between himself and Jinx, he can see that Jinx is a part of Powder that he'd never change because he knows the things she's capable of accomplishing when she embraces that part of herself. But in order for her to do that, she needs to realize that putting herself first will require her to stop coasting off the people around her if she wants to move forward. Or, as Ekko puts it, she needs to understand that
taking a leap forward means leaving a few things behind.
You're a real mystery, aren't you, mister? Alright, out with it. What do you want from me?
Alright, let's talk about the dance.
You are the best thing that ever happened to me, but also the worst thing to
qui m'est arrivé. Ce jour où je t'ai rencontré,
Ekko and Powder's dance is my favorite moment in all of Arcane. I want to try and analyze every part of the dance and give my thoughts on what makes this moment so special to me, and if you are someone who does like this scene, then leave a comment telling me why. So, the first thing I want to look at in this scene is the song Ma Meilleure Ennemie, performed by French artists Stromae and Crumb. As someone who isn't well versed in French, let me say now that the accuracy of these translations isn't 100%. There are a lot of subtle things that get lost even when a language gets translated. But from what I've seen and the hundreds of comments I've read, a lot of what has been translated is somewhat accurate. The name of the song, Ma Meilleure Ennemie, means my best enemy. And you're probably wondering why the song might be called that, considering that Ekko and Powder aren't enemies in this universe. That's because this song isn't about this version of Powder. It's actually about Jinx and Ekko's relationship. The repeating opening lines of this song, I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, are specifically about Ekko's feelings towards Jinx and how he's conflicted because of how he sees her. When they were growing up, Ekko had a crush on Powder. They were best friends that were as thick as thieves, but the older they got and the more hurt they caused one another, Ekko began to resent her. And if you remember what I said about the deleted scene of Ekko trying to save her and failing, he grew to hate Jinx because she rejected him, and that resentment turned into hatred. I also want to highlight how the song starts out with how the words are sung. The I love you part sounds much louder than the I hate you part, but as it goes on and the intro ends, the words being sung sound like they are on the same level, audible so we can hear what Ekko is really feeling, one emotion not overpowering the other, but rather coming to an understanding on how he feels about Jinx. His feelings on her contradicting one another, but giving us the audience a chance to see what's in his heart. The first verse from Stromae has some really beautiful lines that connect together in such a meticulous way that it's hard to talk about any single one line in isolation, so I'm going to talk about the entire verse itself. Stromae puts himself in the perspective of Ekko. The opening line of the verse, you are the best thing to ever happen to me, but also the worst thing to ever happen to me, is about how Ekko always viewed Powder when they were both kids. Growing up in Zon didn't really give Ekko and Powder the best childhood. If I had to use a more recent metaphor to describe the place they lived, Zon would be comparable to Night City from Cyberpunk 2077. A place filled with danger in every corner, and you won't really know if you'll survive just walking down the street. So when Ekko says that Powder was the best thing that ever happened to him, he could be referring to how she was his light in the darkness of Zon. She, alongside Benzo, were the only people who made it feel like Zon wasn't a nightmare for him. Then, when he says, you are the worst thing to ever happen to me, he could be talking about how Jinx has caused him nothing but problems ever since she rejected him and chose to side with Silco. The next line, on that day when I met you, maybe I would rather it had never happened to me, can have two different meanings depending on how you view it. The first interpretation could be Ekko referring to when he tried to save Powder and she rejected him. He's still stuck in that moment where he can't let go of what happened, so he wishes that it never happened at all, and maybe he wouldn't have ended up growing to hate her the way he did. The second interpretation could be in reference to Ekko referring to when he met this version of Powder. The first person he meets when he's transported to this world is her, and she showed him this version of Zon that he always dreamed of, and he got to experience a life that could have been if things didn't go to shit in his timeline. The worst of all blessings, the best of all curses, is a tragic line that highlights to me that Ekko, despite seeing Jinx as the worst thing to ever exist, still sees her as a curse that he was happy to have. I should stay away from you, but as the saying goes, better than alone is it to be in bad company. I swear to God, every line in this song just feels like being repeatedly stabbed in the heart. Ekko believes that he should separate from Powder because of how much it hurts to see the person she's become with her alter ego Jinx. But he also believes that rather than being alone, he would rather be in the company of his former friend, even if her presence isn't pleasant. Ekko is a character whose feelings constantly contradict one another, and I like that this line highlights that he can't really narrow down how he feels about Jinx because of how contradictory his own feelings are in regards to her. The line also transitions very smoothly into the chorus, where Stromae and Palm reference the widely known saying, "Keep your friends close and enemies even closer." But with a bit of a subtle twist, the line reads, "You know what they say, stay close to your dearest friends, but even closer to your adversaries." I think the addition of the word dearest is a nice and subtle touch that kind of highlights that Ekko always viewed Powder as more than a friend. In a relationship, calling someone dear can be intimate. So Ekko calling Jinx his dearest friend implies more than it lets on, especially when the next line sung by Palm, who is the voice for Jinx in this, says, "Even closer to your adversaries." Going into the chorus, Stromae and Palm sing the words, "But my best enemy is you. Flee from me. The worst is you and I. But if you keep searching for my voice, forget me. The worst is you and I." The beautiful thing about the chorus is that both Stromae and Palm sing the first two lines together, indicating that this is how both Jinx and Ekko view each other. They are each other's best enemy. Best in this instance meaning that they know how each other functions, and best can also be romantic in the case of how they view each other, because Ekko called her the best thing that ever happened to me. The more I peel back this song, the more layers I start to see about it, and it just makes me so fucking sad. Oh, the song is so beautiful. What's really interesting about the chorus in the next two lines after "Flee from me, the worst is you and I," Palm is the only one who sings these lines, or rather Jinx is the one that sings them towards Ekko, and the way she sings the line, "But if you keep searching for my voice," pausing for a few seconds and then saying "forget me," feels like Jinx desiring Ekko to look for her. And if you know what happens in episode 9 of the second season, then you can also view this as Jinx asking Ekko to search for her voice to save her. But because of how Jinx views herself, she asks Ekko to forget about her because she also sees herself and him as two broken people who are the worst for each other. And going into her verse, the words she sings gut you with every syllable. Why does hearing your name hurt me when it hides right there in the vicinity? What kind of emotion? Is it hatred or pure sweetness when I hear your name? Ekko has always been the one person who Jinx never had any issues with. Even when they fought each other several times over, Jinx never viewed Ekko as someone she hated. It's actually quite the opposite if you take into account the fact that Ekko tried to save her in the past and failed because he gave up on her. The reason Jinx is hurt when she hears Ekko's name is because he was the last person who gave up on her because she pushed him away in order to protect him. But she was also internally screaming for him to save her. You could also look at this line as Ekko still being hurt every time he thinks of the Powder he lost in his world. The line, "What kind of emotion? Is it hatred or pure sweetness when I hear your name?" is one that confused me a little, because depending on how you look at this line, it can be from both Ekko and Jinx's perspective. For the sake of what I believe to be consistency in this Jesus Christ of a video, I'm looking at this from Jinx's POV, and my own personal interpretation of this line is that Jinx still can't really understand her feelings on Ekko. She's stuck wondering on if she hates him for giving up on her, but is also conflicted on it because she still finds that hearing his name is pleasant to her. The word pure can also indicate these feelings that Jinx has for Ekko stem from the innocence that lingered within her when she was still Powder. The chorus and outro are pretty much the same, but I want to take a look at the pre-chorus towards the end of the song because it is different from the one in the first half of the song. Palm is the only one singing it, and the words she sings are pretty interesting. "I had told you not to keep looking behind. Your past will follow you and wage war on you." What I love about this part of the song doesn't really center around the song itself, but the scene it's placed. When Palm sings these lines, Ekko and Powder are having their conversation, and while I am going to talk about the kiss in a moment. The conversation that Ekko and Powder have here is very important. Ekko confides in her that this world was the one he always wanted for Zahn, but believed it was impossible to achieve. So he gave up. He stopped trying, and as a result of that, he also gave up on Powder. And while Powder does remind him that he isn't the type of person who gives up on anything, he's still conflicted. He finally sees a chance for a happy life in this alternate universe with Powder. The fact that he got to experience a life that probably seemed foreign to him has caused his desire to shift from being stuck between wanting to go home and wanting to stay. And you can see that when he says this.
You ever wish you could just stay in one moment?
But the thing about this line is that Ekko's desire to be stationary is him not accepting the past or looking towards the future. Wanting to stay in this moment is him forfeiting the life he could build if he chooses to live in the present rather than focusing on the future, which is also very representative of his character throughout the show. Ekko is a very interesting character because of how he's always focused on the present, but is also stuck in the past with his relationship with Jinx and Zahn. And because of that, he's never really been able to take the leap forward into the future. The idea of the past following Ekko if he remains stationary is insightful because it's basically an indication that if Ekko never allows himself to move forward, then he'll be crushed by the weight of his decision to leave behind his old life and be stuck living with regrets in the present by staying stationary. So in order to get Ekko to move, Powder tells him exactly what he told her. Sometimes taking a leap forward means
leaving a few things behind.
This line is also a final reference to Jinx and Ekko's relationship. Jinx throughout his verse told Ekko that he should flee from her, but now also adds in the idea of Ekko not looking behind him to see Jinx as she pushes him away because of Ekko's desire to save her and her believing that she's too far gone for anyone to save. Y'all see this Jinx poster here? That was just my interpretation of the song. Now for the dance itself, I fucking love this moment that Ekko and Powder share with one another. Ekko is a character whose life has been awful since the day he lost Benzo, Milo, Clagger, Vander, and Vi. While on the surface he's had to harden himself to survive the cruel world of Zahn he grew up in after their deaths, this dance reminds us that underneath his tough exterior, underneath the mask of being the leader of the Firelights, Ekko never got the chance to just be a kid. We also see a hint of this when Vi hugs him after they reunite, but this is really the moment where we see that he's still a teenager at the end of the day. He didn't get to grow up and experience things that teenagers should because he had to grow up quickly in order to fulfill his role as the leader of the Firelights. The same can be said for Powder, or more appropriately, Jinx. If things hadn't gone so wrong, this is the type of person Powder could have become. But her rough upbringing and Silco's toxic parenting only resulted in her not having the chance to grow up as a normal girl. After Vi abandoned her, she also had to harden her heart in order to protect herself from getting hurt again. She took on the role of Jinx and because of that became more jaded with the world around her. The phrase "what could have been" tends to come up a lot when people talk about this episode, and this dance feels like a taste of that what could have been in its rawest form. For the first time in a long time in Arcane, the story gives a glimpse into what could have been if things didn't go wrong, and it's beautiful.
Maybe if we could turn back time, we'll survive the curse of you and I.
Getting to see these two broken people we know in the main timeline be the happiest versions of themselves, watching them dance, be in sync with one another, laugh and have fun with one another again is just
perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
And there are a lot more minute details to analyze, like how Powder's dance moves are very similar to her mother's, the way she comes into the scene being a parallel to how she reintroduces herself to the story in Act 2 of Season 1, the fact that Ekko has motivated her to embrace the Jinx side of herself, so she has her head down instead of having it in tight buns as a sign that she's allowing herself to be a bit more free and true to herself, the scene being animated in 4 frames per second because not only is that the amount of time Ekko can rewind, but it's also Ekko's desire to stay in this moment and he's only remembering bits and pieces of it because the dance already happened and he's talking to Powder on the same rooftop her and Vi used to overlook Zahn. Oh Oh, how about the fact that Powder's eyes keep looking towards Ekko's lips because she's had the desire to kiss him all night? You get it. There are a lot of tiny details that make the dance scene special. And instead of me giving you more of my thoughts, I thought it would be fun to ask a few other people what they think of the scene itself. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ibi.mp4. I make videos on YouTube, mostly about anime.
Yo, I'm Virtue. I have an anime YouTube channel.
Hey guys, I'm Josh. I am the main voice and the writer for Beyond Media. We just do normal anime analysis, character analysis, anything that we find interesting, kind of in a similar vein to our boy here.
I'm Tapani Lasteller, a common boy VTuber that makes video essays and doomscroll streams. Recently, I decided to have this channel focus on music anime, and my new channel, Layered Anime, focus on video essays that brings anime and the real world together.
What were your thoughts when you first watched the dance and kiss between Ekko and Powder?
My very first thought was that Powder was bad as fuck when she actually showered, and she had that little wolf cut. Like, you know, I was a little smitten. But it also like really reminded me of some of the girls I talked to, which was a scary thought. And the song, I mean, the song was a fucking banger. Like, the song they played, I don't know the name, it's in Spanish, I think. That song is a banger. It's in French, oh, unlucky. But that song is a banger. Like, it just is. And watching the dance, I mean, I had the lingering feeling the whole time that it wouldn't last. Also wanted to know why it was animated in such a low FPS. Like, I wanted to know like the symbolism behind that, because I was like, is my video player glitching? Nah, it's just animated that low FPS. And I found an answer to that after. That it was animated in 4 FPS because his time rewind thing is 4 seconds, and that he wanted the moment to last forever, and that shit, it was sad. But it's also like one of those small things that you find out, and it just makes you like appreciate the art a lot more. The kiss, man, I don't know if I had any specific thoughts about the kiss. I think at that time, like, I was just deep in it. Like, I was just immersed.
I honestly, like, my head was completely empty. I was so absorbed in the vibe of the episode that I actually wasn't consciously thinking about it that much. I was just so in the moment with the characters. I think they do such a good job at pacing that episode to the point where it feels like, man, I'm just in it with them here. Like, I'm just soaking up everything that's going on. So if I had to choose like specific feelings that I had at the moment, I was just like, holy fucking shit, this is lovely. Like, this is just gorgeous. This is adorable.
Unfortunately, I want to say it was uncanny, or at least unsettling. This was because my mind was still plagued with the Jace part in the episode. Jace was going through Eldritch Horror, Hextech Hell, whatever you call it. He's been going through lots of trouble. The episode was going back and forth between Ekko's timeline and Jace's Hextech Hell, and that kind of screwed around with my brain. I know it's supposed to be a heartwarming moment. Everything else I saw about Jace is plaguing it. So I had to go through reading the episode discussions, seeing how happy people were to finally see Powder and Ekko in this timeline, and watching some YouTube videos about it. Then I finally start to get that feeling, going, wow. Why didn't I feel that joy when I first watched it? At least in the end, I finally understood how heartwarming it was.
Oh man, it was such a good scene, and I think like it caught me a little. No, it didn't catch me. It did catch me off guard because episode 7, the whiplash is like crazy, right? When I was watching the dance scene, the first thing I thought of was the ending song of season 1. I just remember like in season 1, Jinx shoots the rocket, and then What Could Have Been plays, and I just remember thinking of that, and I was like, wow, it's like we're seeing it. You know, like we're seeing what could have been. That was really all I thought of. And I thought, I saw the 4 frames per second and I thought of Ekko's ult, but I was so cooked league-wise. But really the main thing I was thinking of was like, wow, like this could have been it. Like this was the future that they wished for, you know, like everything that season 1 and like, I guess mainly season 1, right? You see like Soko's fighting for sovereignty. There's like all this brokering for peace and stuff. And it's like, wow, this was it. Like this is what we were working for that we never got. And so I thought it was just kind of beautiful in that way where it like kind of showed us that like what could have been. That was all I could think of was like, damn.
It speaks volumes and is a testament to how masterfully crafted Arcane's writing and storytelling is when a single kiss and a dance between 2 characters becomes one of my favorite moments moments in a show where the main character fights the mutated wolf form of the father that adopted her. Now, I was going to yap for a really long time about how the build up to this kiss felt very handcrafted and meticulous because of all the subtle details and hints that were spread throughout episode 7 that implied that Ekko and Powder in this universe are in a romantic relationship. But my script is currently sitting at over 8,000 words. 12,000 words, and if I pointed out every single detail, this video would never end. So instead of that, I want to talk about some of my own personal interpretations of this kiss, some of the things that I picked up on, and why from a character writing standpoint it is important for Ekko to have this moment with Powder.
Sorry,
Ekko's hesitation to kiss Powder here stems from two places. The first being his guilt that he's not this alternate universe's Ekko. He isn't just apologizing to Powder for rejecting her advancement, he's also apologizing to the Ekko whose body he's currently in because, and this is the second reason, Ekko feels like he's taking advantage of Powder's ignorance that he isn't the person she knows. But if you pay attention, throughout the montage of Powder, Heimerdinger, and Ekko building the Z drive that I mentioned before, Powder is aware that something about this Ekko is different compared to her Ekko. The reason Ekko asked Powder to
pretend like it's the first time
isn't only because he's never had his first kiss, but also because this moment is special. A first kiss is an intimate moment between two people because it's a sign of the bond that they've built with one another. And even though Powder and Ekko in this universe have probably kissed several times, our Ekko wants this kiss to feel like their first kiss because the bond he's built with this version of Powder was new and formed over the short time that he was in this universe. The kiss also acts as a way of showing us that Powder is aware that the Ekko she spent time with over the last however many days or months it took to build the Z drive isn't her Ekko, but she doesn't view our Ekko and her Ekko as different entities. They are the same person to her. She views them as a single individual, and what strengthens this point to me is that when Ekko tells Powder about how he gave up on seeing the Undercity thrive, he says this to her.
I used to dream the Undercity could be like this, but somewhere I got consumed by all the ways it wasn't. I gave up on it. Gave up on you.
When he says that he gave up on her, he isn't talking to her specifically, but rather he's talking to Jinx. He started to see Jinx and Powder as the same person, the same way Powder sees him and her Ekko as the same person. So when Powder kisses him, it's a sign to him that she loves and cares for the person that Ekko is, not who Ekko is. And this is what shows him that he can love and care for Powder, as well as love and care for Jinx as a whole individual, the person she is rather than who she is as a person. This kiss also marks Ekko's first steps on truly being the boy savior Jinx refers to him as. Ekko has felt immense guilt for giving up on Powder after she rejected him when they were kids. But when Powder tells him that he was never the type of person who would give up on anything, it rekindles the love Ekko once had for Zahn as well as the love he had for her. So he resolves himself to actually save her this time and never give up on her again. I'm bringing it up again, but I'd also like to highlight how intimate this scene feels. When I spoke about the bridge fight that Ekko and Jinx had, you remember that, right? I brought up pantomime and how their scene didn't need any words between them to say 1,000 different things. And this kiss is the same. The way Powder gently caresses Ekko's face in this moment, Ekko's solemn and sad look as he struggles to meet her gaze because he's about to experience his first kiss. And while this would be a happy moment for him, he knows that he has to leave this paradise very soon. But the love in Powder's eyes reminds him that everything's going to be okay, and like two magnets that are drawn to each other, they share their first kiss and it is perfect. Also, when I tell you that I almost punched a hole clean through my monitor because of Ekko's hesitation here, after this, Ekko returns to his world with a rekindled passion and desire to create the Zon he always envisioned it could be, as well as save the one person who now more than ever needed him the most. But I want to quickly mention this look that our Ekko gives to AU Powder before he goes back to his timeline. At first you might think that the look Ekko gives her is sad, but on repeated watches, this look he gives her feels more like one of gratitude rather than anything else. It's a smile that says thank you for telling me that I need to take a leap forward even if it means leaving this paradise behind. Thank you for showing me that Powder never died. Thank you for reminding me to never give up on you and our home again. Now at this point in the story, before Ekko's return, Jinx has lost pretty much everything that was keeping her sane, and she's completely hit rock bottom. Her dad came back, Isha blew herself and the father that she just got back up. Her and Vi are still quite distant despite the fact that they were on the verge of repairing their relationship. She started to realize how the persona of Jinx has done more harm than good to her loved ones, so she hands herself over to Caitlyn as a prisoner. Her suicidal ideation has gotten so bad that she now believes that in order to fix everything, she has to kill herself. She cuts off her hair, burns down her father's old bar, and prepares to take her own life.
Wait! I just want to talk to you.
Get out of here, Ekko.
There are a few things in this scene that really stick out to me. The first being that the first half of the song Wasteland, performed by Royal and Serpent, that plays during the sequence is about Jinx's feelings in regards to Vi. Ever since her childhood, Jinx has always felt like a burden to Vi. I mentioned this when I broke down the Enemy music video at the start of this video, but Powder always wanted to be someone who Vi could see as dependable and reliable. But whenever Vi was around, she never felt like she was doing enough even when she just wanted to help. But because of Vi's insistence to always put the weight of the world on her shoulders so Powder didn't have to suffer, it only created a rift between the both of them, where Powder only ever felt like a problem because Vi didn't trust her enough to have her back. Those feelings never really left her even when she became Jinx. So you add on to the fact that everyone Jinx seems to be close with ends up dying, and you can understand why she believes that by killing herself she'll be able to break the cycle. The first chorus of Wasteland is literally her asking Vi to let her go, because if she does, then she'll be able to live a much happier life without the burden of being Jinx's big sister.
Please let me go, 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 go.
The sad thing is that the first half of this song sounds cold, emotionless. The atmosphere of this song in the beginning is filled with so much dread and melancholy, especially when you see the sequence it's a backdrop to. But everything changes when Ekko enters the equation.
Always a dance with you.
Much like in the Enemy music video, the contrast between Ekko and Jinx's interactions and Vi and Jinx's interactions is almost like night and day. In this instance, it's what specifically Ekko does for Jinx that Vi can't. After Ekko's interaction with a different version of Powder, he's come to understand Jinx more. Ekko realized that Powder was always part of Jinx and that she never died. Her and Jinx are one and the same individual, and because of that, he started to look at Jinx as a whole individual. The saying two sides of the same coin refers to two things that are related but seem different. Ekko only ever saw Jinx after she rejected him. He thought that the friend he once knew was long since dead. His anger at her covered his eyes to the truth, that she was hurting because of the trauma she experienced, and so he only ever saw one side of the coin. But AU Powder showed him that Jinx is an essential part of what makes Powder Powder, and his time with her made him realize that he gave up on her because he only ever saw one side of her rather than seeing both. But eventually he started seeing the entire coin from every single angle. I hope this coin metaphor makes sense because I spent a lot of time thinking about it. The reason that Ekko is able to reach Jinx with his words is because he no longer separates the person she is now from the person he used to know. It doesn't matter if she's Jinx or Powder because he only sees her, and her alternate self helping him build the Z Drive showed him that she is capable of doing things for the benefit of others because deep down she's still a good person. He also doesn't ask her to change who she is, which was Vi's biggest mistake when trying to reach her in the jail cell. Vi asked Jinx to rewrite her story, but Ekko tells her that she has the chance to build something new from her previous hardships and grow from there. And that is a hard step to take because she started to believe that there is no good version of herself. And this is where I bring up Victor and Jace's conversation.
You remember that, right?
When Jace encountered Victor when he was speedrunning Dark Souls, Victor told him this:
"There is no prize to perfection, only an end to pursuit."
And Jace, when Victor was about to achieve his glorious evolution, tells him this:
"There is beauty in imperfections. They made you who you are. An inseparable piece of everything."
This is what I believe to be the thing that makes Ekko and Jinx's relationship so beautiful and why it works despite so many people thinking that it shouldn't. Ekko's time in the alternate universe showed him that despite Powder being perfect, he wasn't satisfied with the person she was because she wasn't Jinx. She was almost too perfect to the point that it scared him until he got used to her. He saw a version of her that had none of the things that someone might consider to be flaws, and he only saw how Powder not having those flaws was limiting the type of person she could become. Ekko saw that there was no prize that came with this perfect version of Powder, and Jace's "there is beauty in imperfection" line is one of the things that is representative of how Ekko sees Jinx. Jinx is crazy, she's wild and untamed and dangerous, and Silco at the end of season 2 called her perfect.
Don't cry. You're perfect.
But the thing about Ekko is that he knows that Jinx isn't perfect, but he accepts that part of her because his time with Powder showed him that Jinx's imperfections are one of the most beautiful things about her. That's why he comes to accept her as a single entity, no longer separating the two sides of her. The reason I believe that this makes their relationship beautiful is because Ekko isn't asking Jinx to be someone else. He accepts her for who she is, warts and all, and doesn't try to force his ideals onto her. He just accepts her. And that's the thing I believe is what Jinx desired more than anything else. Acceptance. Vi couldn't accept Jinx because she wanted her to rewrite her story, but Ekko accepts her and tells her that she can build something new rather than trying to change herself for the acceptance of others. Ekko is the person that has come to accept Jinx for who she is. I know I mentioned it earlier, but I really do recommend you guys check out Shnee's video on Timebomb because he goes into a more detailed breakdown in his video about some of the scenes here. Do you think Ekko needed to experience that version of Powder in order to forgive Jinx?
Yes, because I think he needed to see for himself that there is more to her than just destructive potential, if that makes sense. I think for a long time, Ekko was really lost in the, she's gone, move forward aspect of it. And by going to the other worlds, I don't know, it feels like I think he gets to rediscover why he loved her so much in the first place. Something he hadn't been thinking about. And something, to be fair, Jinx doesn't really give him a lot of time to consider.
Yeah, because he's trying to kill him.
Yeah, exactly. So getting to see that face first, and also, it doesn't help that, it also helps that she was bad as hell. He's probably like, you know what? We can spare this one. There's something to be saved here.
A couple couple more things to note about this scene of Ekko saving Jinx is that the tears from Jinx's crying cause her mascara to form the Roman numeral for the number 4 on the left side of her face, which is also the same side that Ekko appears from. Ekko also rewinds 4 times to save her. Jinx also believes that Ekko died in the explosion on the bridge, so she thinks he's just one of the voices in her head, until Ekko says that he wants to try to convince her not to blow the both of them up, so she jumps instead of pulling the pin to her grenade. The second half of the song Wasteland shifts from the initial melancholy and sadness of Jinx asking Vi to let her go to now being a song with a growing sense of hope that's still tinged with sadness, because in this half of the song she's asking for someone to save her. And if you remember what I said during my breakdown of Ma Meilleure Ennemie about Jinx wanting Ekko to look for her, then the ending refrain of Wasteland where she asks Ekko not to let her go makes the most sense. Now, I'd love to analyze this song more and break down the different aspects of it, but I won't because this video is long enough. If you want a breakdown of me analyzing Wasteland and how it connects to Ma Meilleure Ennemie, then tell me in the comments and I'll consider it if I see enough comments. After Ekko saves Jinx, we don't see any more interactions from them. This scene is the last interaction we see of Ekko and Jinx together on screen talking to one another. And while Ekko does save her during the war from blowing herself up, again, no words are exchanged between these two. And it's almost like there was supposed to be more scenes of these two reconciling with one another, reforging the friendship they once had, and Jinx and Ekko painting on each other. Almost like these important scenes were cut to save time. Now, before I address the elephant in the room, there is another elephant in the room that we need to talk about. So this video has been me analyzing Ekko and Jinx's relationship and trying to understand why it works, despite the reasons that someone might believe that Jinx and Ekko can't ever be more than just friends. What is the appeal of Time Bomb?
Mentally ill woman. They really do. Like, I know I keep saying that, but like, people really do love mentally ill women. Me being one of those people, man. Shorty, actually, it's the appeal of not only I could fix her, then they show you what it is when she's fixed and you're like, yeah, let me gun for that, bro. Let me fucking gun for that. And then I think from like a girl perspective, from like a female perspective, I think Ekko is just like the fucking goat.
He is the goat.
Like getting to see those two get together, you know, like the artsy boy and the, you know, kind of manic sort of pixie dream girl is just like that's a recipe for, you know, a great ship. You know, who doesn't love that shit?
That's such a good question. You know, I think the major appeal of like those two characters together is like they have the context for each other, in the sense of like they saw each other when they were young. They knew what each other grew into, and they still had like the capacity for each other, like the ability to love each other. You know what I mean? Like, I think that it's such a beautiful like love story whenever it's really shown to us and we really know that a character has so many flaws or so many issues, but they're loved anyway, you know? And I think that's where the real power is. And I think that they have such good chemistry, you know, they're written together very well. Even like the brief scenes they have, you can tell like the writers really cared about these two and how they interacted. They have great chemistry, and I think like at their core, they're similar enough, but most importantly, I think that they have this relationship that is, funnily enough, like forged by time. They've known each other their whole life. They've, you know, been around each other. They saw each other grow up. They saw each other, you know, they saw what each other could be, and they saw what they were. And I think that's what a lot of people connect with and love really about it, is like how unconditional and how much care they have for each other. That would be what I would be like, all in all, what I'd say.
There is one thing that I want to bring up that I do feel has made Time Bomb one of the easiest ships to mischaracterize and hate. I can't believe I'm talking about this. There's this large subsection of people online who believe that Ekko does not have feelings for Jinx and that he is in love with the alternate universe version of Powder. The reason for this belief stems from the idea that Ekko can't or is incapable of forgiving Jinx for all the friends Jinx has possibly killed, and her being implicit in Silco flooding the streets of Zon with Shimmer. Now, on the surface, I can understand why someone would see this as a good enough reason for main universe Ekko to never desire Jinx in any way romantically or otherwise. I'm not talking about the racism shit, by the way. Like, I'm not entertaining this bullshit. But this idea that Ekko is incapable of forgiving Jinx and not being in a relationship with her because of the people he's close to being hurt by her kind of spits in the face of one of the themes of episode 7 of season 2. And that theme is forgiveness.
Greatest thing we can do in life is find the power to forgive.
Forgiveness has always been one of the central messages of Arcane. The reason a lot of the worst events in the story happen is because of people not being able to forgive one another or forgive themselves for their past actions. Selko and Vanda's relationship is built around their fallout and Selko never finding Vanda's letter and thus not finding the power to forgive him. Vi can't forgive herself for constantly feeling like a failure despite her desire to protect her loved ones and them rejecting her. Results in her turning into an alcoholic that uses fighting to shut out her thoughts. And of course, Ekko not forgiving Jinx for rejecting him and slapping him when he tried to save her, and because of this, he gave up on her. Ekko's arc in episode 7 of season 2 is him realizing that in order for him to actually repair what's broken, the relationship he had with Jinx and the relationship he had with his home of Zaan, he needs to forgive her. If Ekko didn't forgive Jinx, then he would have zero incentive to save her in season 2's finale. If Ekko only hated Jinx, he would have let Jinx die. If he didn't forgive her, then he would have never sought her out the moment he was transported back to his original world. But here's the thing. He does forgive her. And because he forgives her, she lives. The idea. I swear to God, this is so fucking stupid. I don't know why I'm entertaining it, but I feel like I have to talk about it. The idea that someone is unforgivable for their actions runs counterintuitive to a story where forgiveness is one of the central themes. And this belief that fictional characters shouldn't forgive the people who murdered their loved ones is very bizarre, considering that there are stories where the main character gets forgiven for killing their love interest friends. I know I bring up Berserk way too much for my own good, but Guts and Casca's relationship at the start of the Golden Age has him injuring and killing members of the Band of the Hawk when he first meets her. Those same people were ones she fought beside and possibly viewed as friends, but he killed one of them and still gets into a relationship with her because you can probably piece together that she forgives him for that. There is also this weird belief that Jinx shouldn't be in a relationship with someone because she has mental health issues. And this is very strange to me because it's a very ableist mindset on people with some type of mental health issue being able to form romantic bonds or even be in relationships. I'm someone who suffers from depression, and I can tell you now that I used to believe that because I was depressed, I was incapable of being in a loving relationship. I pushed a lot of people who cared about me away and missed out on relationships that could have been good for me or helped me improve. But after sitting in isolation for such a long time, I realized how lonely this mindset was making me. And once I got out of it, once I actually started being in a relationship, I saw how much better it was to have a support system I could rely on and be someone that someone else can rely on. So saying that Jinx should be alone and that her and Ekko can't be together because she's not of sound mind and only that once she's normal then she can be in a relationship is very ableist. So if you have said that, please stop. You are pushing and perpetuating a very unhealthy narrative on people who suffer from mental health issues, who already believe that they can't be loved. And we really should do better to be accepting of people regardless of if they have a disability, mental health wise or not. If you have depression, if you have some type of mental health issue that you feel doesn't make you lovable or you can't be in a relationship because of it, you can be in a relationship. Please, listen to me when I say this. You are not unlovable just because you suffer from something, okay? You are not unlovable just because you suffer from something. If you have a mental health issue, if you have depression, you are still worthy and deserving of love. Okay. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. You've heard it. I've heard it. It's no secret by now that Arcane Season 2's finale was said to have had around 60 minutes worth of cut content. Now, a lot of people say this cut content was scenes specifically of Ekko and Jinx reconnecting before the final war. I do not want to speculate on if the actual length of the episode was only centered around Jinx and Ekko, because I do think that the scenes probably centered around other characters as well, and I don't want to sound like I've been poisoned by shipper brain rot. The original length of Arcane's finale was supposed to be somewhere around 1 hour and 20 minutes, and the rumor is that they allegedly cut the scenes to fit in with the allocated Netflix runtime for a single episode of Arcane. The reason I say allegedly and rumored is because I don't want to give out false information that probably isn't true. A lot of what I've seen is people saying that the scenes that were cut were Ekko telling Jinx about the alternate version of herself because of show director Christian Link, who said it happened after Ekko talked her out of blowing herself up in his interview with Nakrit. They allegedly got closer and their feelings for one another actually started to develop while they prepared for the war. Now, if this is true, then I just have one question. Why? Arcane is one of the best shows ever put on television. The IMDb score for every single episode of season 2 is a 9 out of 10. It's a show that has some of the best writing and characters. So why? Why cut out scenes that were possibly integral to the story? If the excuse is that Netflix wanted it to be that way, I'm a bit skeptical considering that there are some shows on Netflix that have episodes that are 1 hour long. So it's not like getting an Arcane episode that was much longer would have been out of place for Netflix. Plus, with how many comments from thousands of posts talking about the alleged cutscenes, it's not like people would have been mad at having more of Arcane. Sometimes too much of something can be bad for you, but I'm someone who rewatches Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy yearly. The Return of the King movie is 4 hours long and I love every second of it. So it's not like I or people would have complained if the finale had been over an hour long. And yes, I know that Arcane is the most expensive animated show ever made, but with how successful it was from season 1 and the recent success of season 2, despite the showrunners saying that they lost money, and despite the fact that it felt very rushed, no one on this planet can tell me that more content in Arcane would have been a bad thing. Now, all of this could just be a ploy, a trick even. I'm gonna use that word from now on. Ploy sounds very fancy. I'm gonna use that word. All of this could just be a ploy to get people mad enough that if Riot says that they are releasing the Blu-ray version of Arcane Season 2 with the director's cut that restores all the missing content we should have gotten in the finale, then people who wanted those scenes will fork over hundreds of dollars to see what they missed. But that's a 1 in 100th of a chance of actually happening. To give my honest feelings on the possibility of Ekko and Jinx's scenes being real and being cut, I'm very disappointed. In a very rushed season with episodes that tended to speed through a lot of their plot, episode 7 somehow managed to be an isolated episode that goes back to the more slower paced style of storytelling that made the first season so great. And because it goes back to that style of storytelling, we get to see Ekko live out his dream and see him and a version of Powder be together and build a relationship with one another that, quite frankly, with the minimum screen time that it got, managed to be my favorite relationship in all of Arcane and my only favorite thing in regards to the plot of season 2. I do not care for the Kate Vice sex scene, I'm sorry. Like, I don't care how nice it looked. I do not care for this. I would have rather traded this for more of this. Okay? Not only because of the aspect of what could have been, but what can be if Ekko and Jinx actually get together in the main universe of Arcane. I know that the recent art book of Arcane confirms that Jinx has some type of feelings for Ekko. She even associates the Firelight base with a place she feels love in, but the fact that we never got to see that hurts me. We were probably robbed of something special. And yes, I know Christian Link said that they are interested in continuing Jinx and Ekko's story, and Amanda Overton, one of the leads on the show, has teased the possible idea of Jinx and Ekko being together in the main universe. But the fact that we might never get to see what happened between this scene...
No, I learned from someone very special that no matter what happened in the past, it's never too late to build something new. someone worth building it for.
And this scene is disappointing. It's kind of ironic, honestly. Instead of us taking a leap forward and trying to leave these feelings of dissatisfaction behind, we're stuck in this moment that episode 7 created because it showed us what could have been, and we never got to see it. But Ekko saw it, and what we did get to see was beautiful.
Wait!
You're beyond help. Whoa, relax, Jumpy.
Powder's gone by. All that's left is Jinx. I just want to talk to you.
Get out of here, Ekko. Oh, look who it is. The boy savior. Hey, Space Boy.
Feel like
What is up with you?
I woke up in
Also, I thought I should mention this. Amanda Overton responded to someone's message on Instagram while I was working on this video 2 months ago that the scenes in the finale that were cut were rehashes of what happened in episode 7 of season 2. And if that is true, and the scenes were just Ekko and Jinx interacting kind of similarly to how Ekko and Powder interacted in episode 7, then I guess you can kind of speculate on Jinx having feelings for Ekko and them being in a relationship, but I still don't like the decision of not showing us this moment that they reconnect with one another. Even if I'm happy with the fact that Time Bomb is technically canon, I put that in air quotes because I don't like how vague their relationship status is, even with this confirmation that Amanda gave us. What do you mean that you wanted the audience to piece together and you left it up to the audience's imagination? I don't want to imagine it. Show it to me. I need to see it with my own eyes to believe it. I don't need to imagine. Show me. Show me. If you have the rehashes, show me. I just wanted to see Ekko and our version of Jinx interact with one another. Just give us... Oh, I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I'm not actually mad, but this is frustrating. This is frustrating. Oh, God. Oh, God. At least every piece of League content that we see of them involves the other in some way. Their skins in Lovestruck that are coming out today when this video drops, and like their League skins. This is so frustrating. This is so frustrating. No. What do you mean? What do you mean? You wanted to leave it up to the viewer's imagination. Why? I did not want to imagine Ekko and Jinx getting together and repairing their relationship after 7 years of not talking to one another. In the main universe, I do not want to imagine this. Why? Why? Oh god. This is off script, by the way. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not performing or like reading this off my script. No, this is actually how I feel. Why did you do this, Christian? Why did you do this, Amanda? Why? I love Arcane, by the way. I think season 2 is like a fantastic season. I think season 2 is a phenomenal season. It has its flaws here and there. Do I think that it could have been much better given enough time to cook? Yeah. If it had like maybe like 2 more episodes, I think it could have been like the greatest thing ever. But it didn't, and you know, like whatever we got, like Arcane at its worst is still like better than 99% of most shows that I've seen in like my lifetime. But this decision, it baffles me to cut like such a pivotal and important character interaction. It baffles the mind. It boggles the mind. But you know what? If I keep ranting, like this video is going to exceed its runtime, and okay. Outro. Real outro now. And that was the video. First of all, Happy New Year, even though this is coming out in February. I wanted to start off the new year kind of starting one of like my goals for this year, which is releasing more longer form style content on subjects that I like. And this was the first thing, you know. I never thought that I would like work on a video that's like over an hour long, because I typically tend to talk about, you know, anime shows that are, and like I typically try to keep that within a reasonable amount of time, because I know how bored people can be the longer a video goes on for if it's not entertaining. And I wanted to try and, you know, experiment a little. I wanted to make a video that was over an hour long. Actually, I didn't, honestly. That was probably a lie, but I did want to start, I did and do want to start making longer form content. When I first started working on the script for this video, it was like, I didn't plan for it to be this long. I'm being deadass. Like, I thought like, no, I'm just gonna talk about Ekko and Jinx's relationship for like maybe 20 minutes. You know, the video's probably gonna bomb like extremely fucking hard. You know, but the longer I wrote the script and the more I spoke about Ekko and Jinx's relationship, because it is one of like the most beautifully written tragic relationships I've seen in media for a while now. You know, like, you know, again, massive berserk glazer over here. It's very difficult for me to like really invest in a relationship unless I really like it. And with what Ekko and Jinx had with one another, despite how minimal the screen time they had together on screen was, for some reason I was just so invested in it. And so invested to the point that I just kept writing and writing and writing, and the script kept getting longer and longer. You know, like words kept coming out of my mouth, and I was just like, holy shit, I'm still going, like I'm not done yet. But the more I got into it, you know, the more like I was enjoying myself writing and analyzing like these two characters and their relationship, and how, you know, how it works, and, you know, how their growth affects one another, even in, you know, the smallest ways, in ways that we don't see, and how their relationship affected, like, growing up from, again, what we didn't see. A lot of it is just speculation, but at the same time, there's enough there that you can kind of piece together enough to understand how their relationship is. And because of that, this behemoth of a video came out. Again, I really wasn't planning for it to be like this long, honestly. Like, I just thought I'd make like a regular 10-minute video talking about it, but somehow it ended up being an hour, and like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed making this video. Hopefully I brought enough entertainment to the people who are watching this video. If you're watching this video and you enjoyed it, I hope, like, if you're watching this video until this portion here, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked the video. I hope you liked me talking about Time Bomb and Arcane. And my battery's dying, so I have to kind of wrap it up. But, you know, I hope that this video opened your eyes, if you didn't see, on a different perspective on Ekko and Jinx's relationship. You know, I hope this video is like the definitive. It probably won't be, because there's like much better video essays out there. But there's a fucking dog barking outside my window. I hope this video is like the definitive Time Bomb video. It probably won't, but, you know, I can be delusional. I'ma be fucking delusional. This video is the definitive Time Bomb video. Thank you to all the creators and the people who I interviewed for this video. If you are interested, please check them out. The YouTubers, not the regular people I talk to. Please leave them alone. They do not want to communicate. A lot of them make really great content. We bully one of them in the group chat. Kai, I love you. I'm sorry. That was me. I'm sorry. Check out their videos. They make really great stuff. This video also comes out the day Love Struck comes out. The Love Struck skins come out, so go check those out. You know, go give Riot your money. Maybe if they see enough people buy the Love Struck skins, then they'll be like, hey, maybe we should make a comic with these two characters. It probably won't happen, but, you know, again, let me be fucking delusional. This video was long. If you're still here, subscribe or I will shoot you. I hope you subscribe. I have a Patreon too, so if you guys are interested, like wherever the Patreon thing is next to me somewhere here. If you guys are interested in supporting the channel, now that I'm at like 10,000 subscribers, you know, hopefully, like, that's a big enough audience now. If you guys are interested in supporting the channel, supporting longer form videos like this, you know, helping me get them out, and, you know, like helping me, or, you know, just to fund the channel so I can try different things with what I talk about, like this video was the first, then please support the Patreon. You know, any support is always welcome. There's like two tiers. There's a general support tier, which is like $4 or $3, and there's like the big tier, which allows you to access a lot of what I am working on, or, you know, like a lot of the different things that you get there. But I might just make the general support tier the same as the larger tier. Like, I might offer more things in the general support tier, because, like, I feel like people who give me money should at least be deserving of more than just going like, here's money just because we're supporting you. You know, like, I should at least give, you know, people who just want to just general support, like, at least more than just that, you know? So Patreon over here, wherever it is. I don't know when the next video is coming out. Hopefully, like, this month too. Probably won't, because like this video is already taking a lot out of me to make. But yeah, next video's out whenever it's out. I hope you liked this video. I hope you subscribed. You know, go rewatch Arcane if you are interested in just having a good time. And that's it. I will see you guys later. Cover in darkness. Is Snow Bunny mind control real? Answer the question.
Yes. Yes, you see it everywhere. Everywhere you go, everywhere you look, but you cannot ignore that shit. Bro, people do not believe in it. I don't know why. Because, oh my god, bro. The amount of brothers that I've seen, these Snow Bunny chases. I'm talking they parking out in the Himalayas. They're staying in the snow. It is egregious because the things motherfuckers will do for a white girl, backflips on it, crazy on it. Motherfuckers will do 1% of what they would do for any ethnic woman. These beautiful, gorgeous ethnic queens out here struggling for the white woman. And now, that's not to say that white women are bad. We love white women. We do. But it's when you pursue the snow over the original, like, that's just when I'm like, all right, you're lost. You're lost.